We are now debating the Commerce, Justice, Science Appropriations Bill. I'm the vice chair of that subcommittee, and just wanted to make our people aware that the pending bill funds the Department of Commerce, which hopefully works to create jobs in our country, the Justice Department, the National Science Foundation, the Space Agency. Excellent, all related to how do we build a strong economy and how do we protect our people. And it's a bill that I have worked on not only all year long, but as someone who's worked on this bill for over close to 30 years. This bill, this subcommittee bill, when it moves, will be my final subcommittee that I will have been in a major chairmanship, vice chairmanship role. So people would think, gee, Senator Barb wants to move this bill along, and I sure do. I've worked hands-on with my colleague, the senator from Alabama, Senator Shelby. We have a good bill. We have a bill that I will continue to advocate. But people would say, well, then, Barb, why would you support a filibuster? Well, I'll tell you why I supported filibuster. Guns, 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 guns. And on the anniversary of the assassination of those people at the Charleston church, we had yet another mass murder scene occur in Orlando, Florida. Now, we organized the filibuster so that we could get a vote to stop the terrorist suspects from getting guns, and also to extend background checks for all gun sales and extend that background check to the internet and gun shows so that we could curb violence. I actually wanted to go further. I wanted to bring back the ban on assault weapons that expired, because assault weapon is no more than a weapon of war to be used by military or those in defense of our country that had to kill a lot of people in a short amount of time by as few as a pull on the trigger as possible. But no, we knew we couldn't get that way, so we went to these two bills. Number one, to close the terrorist loophole, and the other to extend background checks. I supported, one, the men of Newtown, and I see one on the floor now, the distinguished senator from Connecticut, former attorney general, who was in the Senate when Newtown happened, followed along with his junior colleague, Senator Chris Murphy, also of Connecticut, Senator Booker of New Jersey. They led this fight. And I am proud of what they did, because what did they filibuster for? Only to get a vote. We had to have a filibuster to get a vote on offering ideas on how we could curb gun violence in our country and protect our own people. One is against terrorists getting guns, and the other extending background checks to the internet sales and to gun show sales. Now, I come from a state with a proud heritage of hunting. It's part of our way of life in many parts of our state. We respect that. But this will in no way impede anybody from being able to do that. And yet we had to filibuster to get a vote. Not even a filibuster on the bill. So within just a matter of 2 hours from now, we will be voting on those two amendments. I hope that those amendments pass. And the other side of the aisle also has alternatives to those. That's the American way. We presented an idea. They think they have an idea. Well, let's vote on who has the best idea to curb violence and protect us against terrorism. Mr. President, this isn't the first time someone filled with hate, armed with a high-powered weapon, has killed his fellow citizens. Innocent Americans have died time and time again, in a church like in Charleston, in schools like Newtown, in a movie theater, or at work. The list goes on. And also, the availability of guns occur in our cities. Places like Baltimore, where we have a high homicide rate due to the drug trade. We would like to be able to address that today, but instead we have focused on these two specific things. As I said, I would have liked to have done more, but this is a fantastic start, and I salute those colleagues that led the filibuster. America wants us to take action. Now let's go to closing the terrorist loophole. You know, when I get on an airplane, I go through metal detector, I take my shoes off, I take my jacket off. There was a time when they even looked at what I had in my tube of lipstick so that it would not be a lethal weapon. I support that. I don't want to be blown up in the sky, and I don't want anybody else on that plane. But why is it we would go through such incredible scrutiny to board an airplane to protect me against terrorists? And yet we have no scrutiny of the people on a terrorist watch list to be able to buy a gun. Now, you can be on a terrorist watch list, but one of the ways you're going to commit terror is to kill people, one through mass murder, like the horrific 9/11 incident that still sears our memory and breaks our heart every time we think about it. But my gosh, if I'm going to get on an airplane and they're going to want to know when I go through what's in my tube of lipstick, that it's not a lethal weapon, certainly why don't we try to curb lethal weapons? Why don't we curb lethal weapons? So that's why I support the Feinstein Amendment. You can walk into a gun store now, and in 3 days or less, you can walk out with a high-powered rifle, a high-capacity magazine, unless you've committed a crime. You can't get on an airplane, but you can buy an AR-15. This is unbelievable. And this is what Senator Feinstein's amendment would fix. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of her amendment, and I'm glad the Senate will vote on it, and I hope we can pass it. The distinguished senator from Texas, Senator Cornyn, has an alternative. Let him explain that and defend it. I think the Feinstein amendment is superior. I also hope we pass the Murphy amendment to close the gun show loophole. Today, 40% of gun sales are unlicensed. They are sold online or at gun shows. It means that 40% of the gun sales have no background check, giving felons, abusers, domestic violence abusers, or terrorists have easy access to guns. This amendment will help with two things. It will get all of the names of all people prohibited from buying guns into the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, which is the federal background check system run by the FBI. And it would require background checks for the sale or transfer of all firearms by private sellers. Mr. President, background checks do work. In 18 states where background checks are required for all handgun sales, 46% of fewer women are killed by domestic partners, and 48% fewer law enforcement officers are killed with handguns. So if you want to protect law enforcement, if you want to protect us from domestic violence abusers and so on, you want to close this gun show loophole. It'll not only deal with terrorists, but it'll deal with people who are deeply, deeply troubled. I urge my colleagues to pass this amendment. I urge my colleagues to pass the Murphy-Blumenthal amendment. And I'm going to say something before I leave the floor to the senator from Connecticut. You know, Senator, after Newtown, I really thought we would do something. The massacre of 20 children, 20 elementary school children, and 6 educators who literally put themselves in harm's way to save the children. 6 educators, 20 children killed by an assault weapon, I thought we would do something. But we didn't do it after Newtown. I didn't know when we would do it. Then there was Aurora, there was Charleston, and now there's Orlando. But if we didn't do it after Newtown, sir, I really hope that this is a new day. And I thank you for standing up for those families and for all families in this country. And I'm honored and pleased to stand with you. I yield the floor.